Welcome, everybody. We've got David James Rodriguez here, SteVAN, the model anarchist. Not just any anarchist, the model anarchist. Say hi, you guys.
What's up, everybody? Great to be here. Freedom to travel. Free traveler. Excited for our guest tonight and this movement. I see a lot of stuff on TikTok about freedom to travel. I don't know if you guys have been seeing this as well. There's a lot of people are standing up, and tonight's guest has been doing it and has a lot of stories to share, and myself as well. And um, turns out that we're children of God and we're allowed to travel on the earth, and we need to educate the planet, basically. Well, not the entire planet, just the cops. We can win the cops over, and we've had some good shows about that. So it's good to be with you, Clint. And thanks for leading and co-hosting and co-producing and doing all the great stuff that you're doing here with this call. And I think we're about 2.5 years in, and momentum is building. Tonight's guest is going to talk about November 5th and the International Remove Your Plates from Your Car Day, and all the excitement and things that come with that. Looking forward to all the comments and questions tonight. Your time is very, very valuable and precious, and to spend it here with Clint and myself and SteVAN, we're grateful for that. Look forward to all the exciting things that you guys are doing out there as well. I'm glad Clint calls us a confab, the collective, the community. You know, we're all leaders in our own right, and we're all on our own path and journey. Such a joy to be with you guys and to speak forth the world that we're creating. And I hope you guys have some awesome stories to share and comment. Tonight is about our guest and freedom to travel. Clint, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm really looking forward to hanging out with you guys and everyone else. We want to definitely talk about what it's like to drive without a license, or to drive without a license plate, or to not register your vehicle, or to not pay your traffic tickets. There are so many different ways to go about expressing your freedom to travel. There's no one right way. And over the many months now, as you said, 2.5 years of monthly confabs, we've had a whole variety of different folks coming and sharing how they've done it. And tonight we're going to learn some more from SteVAN in his most recent encounter, just as early as last night. Apparently, we had a little thing, and we want to hear how you navigated that. I don't think you were planning that one.
No, I don't plan any of them.
Yeah, the ones you plan and the ones you don't plan. So yeah, we want to hear about that, but all the things just really to dissent and to let the system know that we are not participating. It's not for us. It's not consistent with being a free American. At the same time, we've got a couple of comedians in our presence. So tonight, on top of sharing, your personal experience with the vehicle code in your state, we also have a couple of comedians. So I hope you're willing to somehow find the humor in all of this and have a good laugh. I mentioned it last month, actually, because it was just coincidental that I got to be in the same room with David James Rodriguez and SteVAN, the model anarchist, up in Reading, where they were both stars. They were both performing stand-up comedy in a restaurant there. And wow, I mean, you know how you feel sometimes of serendipity and just things come together? I was up there for a course, and just so happened you both came to comedy independently, right? I think, right? It was just coincidental as well, and that you were both performing the same night. And I'll say, out of the lineup, you two were absolutely the funniest. There was one other guy that was pretty darn funny, but the two of you were making me chuckle a lot more than the others, I got to tell you. And I thought, is there a way to laugh about the vehicle code?
Exactly.
Well, I'm willing to laugh if you're willing to try to make us laugh. How's that?
Steven has some DMV jokes actually that crush it, but it's so critical, I think, that we transcend the anger and the frustration and all that crap that's inside of our body and transcend and release it. And I think that's what happened too. Very kind words, Clint, because it's hard to write original jokes and it's hard to memorize it and go up there, perform in front of strangers who aren't freedom aligned in general. That's one of the challenges, is that these are just some regular peeps. So how to find the humanity inside of other people, because deep down they know government's terrorist, criminal organization. But when you say it like that, that's a little bit heavy. So how to say it bolder or funnier. Stevens did a great job. His DMV jokes are hilarious. So, but there's a lot of content there, right? There's not a shortage of content and hypocrisy and all the stuff that we're just like, what is going on? So, yeah, it's great to be with you, SteVAN and Clint and all the guests here tonight. Because, yeah, we have to laugh about the tyranny that's happening, and then we find solutions, and then we find joy. And it was serendipitous, I would say, Clint, because that law group was meeting there, and an hour and a half later, we had a comedy show. So just shows if we just keep building and producing and creating, the people are starting to get ready. That's what I'm starting to notice, is that people are looking for solutions. And if we have some, which I think exercising our freedom, and SteVAN's going to talk about November 5th. Yeah, you want to talk about that, SteVAN, or your thoughts on the comedy that Clint's mentioning?
Or what happened last night. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, man, we're glad you're okay, man. It sounds like the predators stole your property. You might be able to go on the offense here, man. You're one of the champions of the right to travel on the planet right now. It's great to be with you.
Oh man, that's a nice compliment. I really appreciate it, and all the kind words you said too, Clint, about the comedy. And David, you know, you really hit the nail on the head. It's you know, it's hard to do comedy, especially when we're on the fringe like this, when you don't know who your audience is, and you don't know if they even come close to seeing the world in the way you do. You know what I mean? And it's hard to take a lot of these topics and make them funny. And yeah, I've worked hard at it, and thanks for recognizing some of that. So the first time I came on and talked to you guys, I'd gotten pulled over in November, and I ended up getting a citation, but the officer did not take my car and he did not arrest me. And then with the citation, just a follow up, because it hadn't concluded last time I talked to you guys. With the follow up, I sent the citation back to the court, and I said, you know, this promise to appear or pay was signed purely under duress. And, you know, any contract signed under duress is obviously not binding. So I won't be there, is basically what the letter said. And then they sent a notice back that said, we don't have a record of this citation. So I don't know if it was just the officer decided ultimately to not turn in the citation, because maybe I reached his humanity well enough, or if maybe the courts are just like, we're sick and tired of the people like this coming in here and getting everybody riled up. And so it's just better off to just let them go. What are we really going to get anyway, right? So shortly after that conversation with you guys, in March, I ended up getting pulled over again. Again, it was highway patrol, and this time I was on the side of the road for less than 6 minutes. The cop came up to the road. I gave him I learned from Bob Diskin, who you guys have had on the show a couple of times now. And I learned from Bob about, forming a church and doing everything under the jurisdiction of the church. And so I had a church ID, and that's the only thing I gave to the cop that time was my church ID. And when he asked me why I hadn't paid my registration, I said, well, because the government's ran by warmongers and pedophiles, and they just don't get my efforts anymore. You know, it's too much. It's too much. I don't sleep well at night knowing that, these guys are stealing my labor. They're stealing my efforts, and they're using it to build bombs and assault people and kill people all over the world. And, I'm just not going to participate with that system anymore. And then, Clint reached out to me yesterday. He goes, hey, you want to be on the Free Traveler monthly call tonight? I go, oh, or tomorrow? I go, yeah, let's do that. And then last night I get popped by local PD, pull me over. And, it's a very different experience with local PD than it is with CHP. Because when you're with CHP, it's just the one cop. And, when you're just one-on-one, it's a lot easier to reach the humanity of the person wearing the police costume. And they don't have the pressure from their other gang members and their other teammates to go, you got to enforce the law. You got to enforce the law. So last night, right when I got pulled over, and of course it was just for registration. It had nothing to do with speeding or suspicion of impaired driving or distracted driving or anything like that. So he pulls me over. I pull into a parking lot, gets out. He comes up to the window, and I just give him the spiel. Like, I'm not participating with the DMV. They're a criminal organization, and they don't get any of my efforts. And almost right away, a second cop showed up, and then a third cop shows up, and then a fourth cop shows up, and it's all simply because of registration, And so they get to the point where they're like, well, we're going to need you to get out of the vehicle. And, I did. I cooperated. I kept telling myself in the past, like, Like when a cop is hard-nosed bent on stealing my car, I'm just going to make him smash my window to drag me out, because I'm going to make him like earn it. I'm not going to cooperate in it, but fear is kind of a motherfucker sometimes. And it just wasn't a good night to get arrested last night. So I complied and I got out of the car, and I was able to talk them into, instead of putting me in the back of the squad car, to at least let me sit on the bumper of the squad car, and so they did that. And I was probably out of the car for like 6 or 7 minutes. And I look over down the road and a fifth squad car comes rolling up. And I'm just thinking, how ridiculous is this? Like, how big of cowards are these guys that you need 5 cops for a non-belligerent, non-combative person who all I'm saying is I'm going to stand in my principles, and I'm not going to pay registration. So anyway, they ended up not arresting me, but they did steal my car, which is unfortunate and kind of a big pain in the butt. But I knew what I was getting into when I started behaving this way. And it's hard going out there and feeling like the only person doing it. And this is kind of like the backbone, I think, of November 5th. One of my favorite memes is that meme where there's the one guy in the front with a whip, and he's facing all the people on the other side, and they're all bowed down. And then in the second slide, like 2 or 3 of them are standing up. And then the fourth slide, there's like half of them. And then the last slide, they're all standing up. And it's like, they don't have enough regulators to directly extort us. They need our compliance within our own extortion, right? Most people go to the DMV not because there's directly a gun to their head, but just the fear that there might be a gun to their head. And but if you look at the numbers nationwide, there's only 700,000 full-time police officers, and there's 200 million people with cars. There's no way they can regulate us all. And even with a very small percentage of the 200 million with cars, if we could get 7 million people, that's like about 3.5%, to just take our license plates off on November 5th, right? And I'm trying to push it for November 5th because that's the next election. And some of these people, I look at them and I talk to them. I go, man, you're like 60 years old. You've been voting every year for like 40 years, and things keep getting worse. But you're telling me that this time it's going to work. Like this time it's going to get better. And it's not. If we keep voting for tyranny, that's what we're going to get. We're going to get more and more of it. And so if we overwhelm the system with peaceful noncompliance, and peaceful is the important thing to me, it's because violence is the birth mother of government, and the government has a monopoly on violence. And so they're very, very good at it. Even if the American people had an armed revolution and we overthrew the current tyrants, the best we could do is swap out the current ones for new tyrants, because that's what violence will always bring. So we need to find a way that we can come together and agree that we're gonna, as a community, as a people, as a species, we're gonna hold consent at the core of all of our interactions. Now, of course, if somebody violates that, then there's obviously we need an avenue for justice. But overall, the only reason why society works is because we all have the natural laws of human interaction ingrained within us. Right. And so we all know that consent should be at the core. Even a thief doesn't want to be stolen from, right? A rapist doesn't want to be raped. A murderer doesn't want to be murdered. Even when people do what's wrong, they know that it's wrong, and they know that there's retribution coming. And most of us choose not to do what's wrong, not because of fear of retribution, but because that's just who we are as a species. And the government's done a great job at hijacking us. And at the core of government, it's one person telling a group of people, hey, you guys should be afraid of those people over there, and we should probably go murder them. And the more that goes on, just the worse it gets for everybody involved. And as a species, there's just so many better ideas as to how we can organize ourselves than what we're doing. And so when I talk about this November 5th thing about, taking your license plates off, and people look at me and they go, well, you've already gotten 2 cars stolen from you by the cops. You lost the first time, very, very first time you got pulled over with no plates. They took your car, and now just last night, my car got taken too. And I get a lot of expressions of fear from people when I talk about this. But the way I'm trying to help people wrap their heads around this, and the way I want people to understand how to quell the fear, is you got to look at what the rules are on paper. Why did I get my car stolen from me last night? Well, because I'm on the extreme side of things. My registration on the car that I was driving was well over 2 years out. I don't have a driver's license. I didn't have auto insurance, right? a vast majority of the population, even people that want to be free travelers, even people that know that it's all bullshit, we shouldn't have to be doing it. Most people still have a driver's license and their registration's current, and they have auto insurance. So if you take your license plates off, you're not risking losing your car. You're not risking getting shot. You're not risking a huge, major, massive inconvenience, right? All you're risking is a fix-it ticket, and fix-it tickets are plenty easy to not have to actually pay. So you're really risking very little, but the payoff, the upside is huge. What if on November 5th, all of a sudden, 10 million people don't have license plates on their cars anymore? And it's people talk about not paying the IRS. They say, hey, we should all stop paying taxes. And I completely agree with that. But there's no way to know if somebody actually stopped paying their taxes because there's no visual representation of that. But if we're all driving around and all of a sudden there's 10 million cars without license plates, then that's proof. That's proof that, hey, I'm standing up. I'm standing up for what's right. And I want you to know I'm doing it. And I want to see you doing it too, because the more of us that do it, the more of us will do it. Because if there's one issue that everybody is in agreement on, if there's one issue that we're unified on, it's that we all fight the DMV. Nobody likes going there. In some of my jokes, one thing, and I turned it into a joke, but one of the things that really started to grind my gears about the DMV is you would go there and they would call you customer. And it's like, I'm not your customer. Okay, there's a whole department of people with guns, and they're going to steal my shit if I'm not here and paying you. And what it is you're an extortionist, and I'm your victim. And like the cops last night, they were getting pretty irritated with me because I was sitting on the bumper and I'm asking them, I'm like, you guys feel good about this? You guys feel good about what you're doing? I go, there's no difference between what you're doing and a low-level mafia thug going business to business in the Bronx, threatening business owners that he's going to smash up their windows if they don't pay his boss. I go, the only reason you stop me, not because there's a complaint about me from another member of the general population, not because I was being reckless or dangerous or drawing a lot of attention to myself. You only stop me because I'm not contributing to the fund from which you draw a paycheck and a pension. That makes you the bad guy. And you're here just trying to bust me up. I did inform them. I let them know. I did say, hey, look, I gave you my church ID. I'm a minister of the Living Way Holistic Church, and I am in the commission of my ministry. And then I keep a license plate for the Living Way Holistic Church inside my car. I didn't have it on the back yet. I keep it on the dash. And I showed that to the officer too. I said, this car is church property. And the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. And what that means is that the jurisdiction of the church is above the jurisdiction of the state. And not only does the First Amendment say that, but that's also reiterated in Section 4 of the California Constitution. And so because I'm in a constitutionally protected activity right now, you don't have any qualified immunity at all. It's gone. And so, I guess now it's time to put the theory to test. Tomorrow I'll be sending off letters of intent to sue to see how that goes. Why don't I try and really get the impound yard to just give me my car back and go, because I'm going to let them know, when I sue you guys, I'm going to win. A clear violation of the law and the codes and the statutes. These guys don't understand the codes. And I'm going to win. And the police department is not going to contribute anything to your defense. And they're not going to contribute anything to the penalties that you're going to incur. But in the letter, the intent to sue letter, there will be a settlement offer. And for the tow yard, I'm willing to settle simply if they return my car. And then let them go. Just give me my car back, which will be a whole host of problems because now, half the night shift here in Vacaville knows what my car looks like. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And it sucks that it happened and it's frustrating. And I know the situation I put myself in, but I can't help but think if there were enough of us doing this, they would stop regulating that behavior. Because, these cops, I could tell when I was asking them the tough questions, about telling them basically like you need to measure your behaviors against your belief system and ask yourself if you're still the good guy that you think you are. They didn't like that. They were getting uncomfortable. One of them was a complete knucklehead, man. This one guy was a complete hammer, and all he wanted to do was he wanted me to give him an excuse to look like a nail. You know what I mean? And I want to do it. you know, as I sitting on the bumper, my back was against the grill and it started to get real hot. And I look right at him. I go, "Hey man, I don't want you to get it jumpy, but I got to readjust my position, you know, because sometimes some of these guys are hammers, and you know, that's just kind of the world we live in. But again, if enough of us do it, if enough of us just stand up, and it takes some bravery to do it, it's scary, it's exhilarating, it's super exhilarating. I mean, the first day you go driving around without a license plate, you feel like you're doing something wrong. And you're not, you're doing everything right, actually. Um, and if enough of us do it, we can just peacefully collapse the system. And if we peacefully collapse the system, it means we can build a new system right under their noses, with minimal amount of fallout. You know, if there's any form of war or armed revolution, a lot of people are going to suffer that don't need to suffer, right? And so the two things that we need to do, and get into the consciousness of the people, is one, November 5th, we're not going to pay the DMV. We're just not going to do it. And within a year, the DMV will collapse. And once the DMV collapses, everything else collapses, right? But the DMV is phase one. Phase two is to get small businesses on board, to get a coalition of small businesses in, say, like the same county, who are willing to publicly burn their business licenses and tell the government they are no longer going to collect sales tax. They're not going to collect income tax, and they're not going to pay any payroll tax. And at some point, they will start to get arrested. And what we need the small business owners to do is we need them to stand up and say, put me in front of a jury. Put me in front of a jury. And we have the power as jurors. We have the power of jury nullification. So all it takes is one juror on a criminal court case to say not guilty. And regardless of the facts of the case and the law that's been violated, the government's prevented from punishing that person. So if we get small business owners to stand up and say, hey, I'm not paying the taxes anymore, and then when they go to court, the juror says not guilty, the business owner is right back out on the street the next day, and his doors are open again. And when we do that enough, the small business and the middle class will come rushing back, because when small business gets out from underneath the tax burden, then they're going to be able to offer better prices than the big box stores, and better employment opportunities than the big box stores. You know, a lot of people don't realize when it comes to the payroll tax, your employer pays basically double whatever your salary is. They got to pay you your salary, and then they have to almost match that to pay the government just for hiring. Imagine what the face of the economy could look like if all of a sudden small business just had that money back, right? And the beautiful thing is, big business won't do it. Walmart's not going to do it, right? Best Buy's not going to do it. None of those big box stores are going to do it, because they are the government. They're in bed with the government. They're the ones who are capitalizing on the violence of the state to create barriers to the marketplace, to make sure that other people can't get in. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the rant and you know, some of the thoughts I have about it. And yeah, I don't know where else to go with what to explain, but if anybody's got questions or talk about other things, I'm here.
Well, there's the model anarchist right there. You're speaking anarchy in the most beautiful way. Like, people don't understand the word anarchy. That, you know, there's a lot of weird
Well,
associations with that term, but what you're talking about, mass non-compliance.
Yeah.
People think anarchy means chaos, and if people just stop complying, there might be an intermediate period where things are not so predictable and orderly. But I think we'll be good on the other end.
so can I address that term anarchy for a second? Because I've been thinking about it a lot for a long time. I've really been mulling the term anarchy over in my head, and the conclusion I've come to is that anarchy is a force of nature. Everybody is an anarchist. The word anarchy literally means without rulers, and so that intrinsically means self-ownership. And we can observe all of creation and see that every blade of grass owns itself. Every tree, every animal, every bug, every insect, everything in nature is an anarchist. And so anarchy is not a thing that can be tried. Anarchy just is what is. It's a force of nature. What can be tried are ideas. And right now, as a species, we're using our self-ownership to participate in this idea that maybe we shouldn't own ourselves, and maybe we should be owned by the state. And so on a political spectrum, I wouldn't call myself an anarchist. I would say my political ideology as to how the species should organize ourselves is volunteerism, which means that all interactions between humans should have consent at the core, and whoever is violating consent is the bad guy, no matter what the excuse is, no matter what their belief system is. There's no belief system that gives one other human the right to violate consent of a second human.
Beautiful. It's so simple and so pure. It's hard to argue with. I mean, we really have to have our heads full of ideas about government and being a good boy by following the rules and being a bad boy if I don't follow the rules. Just like so much conditioning has to have happened to take us away from that natural state you're describing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brainwashing for sure. We're taught that obedience is a virtue, and obedience is not a virtue. Obedience is what has been at the root of the biggest, most violent, most disgusting atrocities that mankind has ever committed against each other. It's because of the obedient. You know, those cops last night. Oh, I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing my job. Well, I don't care, man. Your job, you don't get to have a job where you're busting people up and stealing their property and trying to force them into contract. That's a clear and obvious violation of the natural laws of human interaction. And I see it for what it is, and I'm going to call you out on it.
Yep. I thought about anarchy too for a long time. I actually wrote an ebook for Anarchapulco titled The Anarchist Guide to the Galaxy some years ago. That's on my website. You can go get it for free. But that's why I use the word voluntarism. And then I've evolved my particular idea and principle to get out there is voluntary living, because it's so simple. It's so basic. You brought up consent, self-ownership, and some of you guys might not have heard of Auburn Herbert, but I believe he's the one who coined voluntarism. He has a book called The Voluntarist Creed. You know, he talks about self-ownership, self-direction, and it's so simple. Like you said, SteVAN, everything out there is already sovereign. They're already free. It's this parasitical entity that is taking our money, and as you said, taking your effort, right? Literally, I did the math on it too. Out of a 45-year career, if the government is taking a third of our income, which is 33%, but it's probably 40 or 50% or maybe more by now with all the taxes, let's call it a third. That means out of a 45-year career, we're spending 15 years paying for this organization. Now, we like when the cops protect life and liberty. That's good. Sometimes, you know, things happen and they do the right thing. But for the most part, it is an extortion racket, and we don't need it, you know. And one of my jokes I'm working on, I haven't polished it up yet, but here's the conversation I hear a lot, which is, without the government, what about the roads, right? And just so you know, the roads are paid for from the gas tax, which is like 5% roughly in every gallon of gas that you buy. So that's already in the gas tax. It's not a DMV thing. It's not a license or registration thing. So they say, well, what about the roads? And the joke is, well, if you have a Jeep, the entire earth is already a road. You just put in four-wheel drive, man. Let's go. Asphalt or dirt, it's a road. The earth is flat. At least it looks like it. You know, I don't know, that's another conversation. But it's already a road. Government didn't invent roads. That's one of the mind control propaganda they put in our heads, in schools, in the media, and all these things. So we can travel on the road. And November 5th, I think, is very powerful, SteVAN. That's why I'm so grateful you planted that seed some months ago, because this is an idea whose time has come. And yeah, it's 3 months away or whatever it is, but you could maybe, or we could make it into a monthly thing or a weekly thing. I think, like you said, if somebody already has a license and registration, then taking their plates off, the worst they're facing is a fix-it ticket. And if you get pulled over with no license plate, you can tell the cop, hey, I'm just doing this today only, you know, and I'm putting it back on tomorrow. I'm just trying it out. You know, have a conversation with these guys, because these low-level cops, God bless you guys. You know, I have friends that are CHP and sheriffs and local cops, right? Some of these guys are good guys, but they just haven't discovered the moral code, which is do not harm peaceful people. And I think it was on one of our courses, Clint, that I put the video of the interaction I had with the guy appealing to his morality. And I said, I know you're a good guy, but the politicians are making you do this. And the politicians are making me do this too. So victims shouldn't fight victims. Wouldn't you agree? So I was seeing the goodness in him. And as you said, SteVAN, seeing their humanity, reaching their humanity, and understand they're doing this for a paycheck. They just unfortunately they put money higher than righteousness. They put money higher than morality. And I think the pendulum is about to swing back towards a moral society, a righteous society, because of what we're doing. And the people here on the call, you guys are leaders here, where it's like, it's time to call it out. It doesn't mean we have to dehumanize them or demoralize them, but what's our responsibility if we know that our rights come from God and we're allowed to be free? This is the land of the free. We've read the Constitution, we've read the Declaration of Independence, and we didn't sign it. So, you know, as Lysander Spooner proved 150 years ago in his document, No Treason, the Constitution of No Authority, if I didn't agree to the contract, it's an invalid contract. Or if the contract's agreed to under duress, it's an invalid contract as well. This is basics. So these ideas will go viral, and there's a lot of people who realize that we're not in commerce. We're allowed to have our beliefs and be here on a mission from God. They basically are terrorizing people. I had a buddy call me today. He got a letter from the California Franchise Tax Board, and I said, you know that gut feeling like terror? That's their move. Their move is, oh no, they're gonna do this to me. Well, if you take your cash out of the bank, they can't freeze your bank account, and then what are they gonna do? You know, so it's like how to transcend their strategy, and I think taking off the plates is a big one.
You know, the definition of a terrorist is somebody that uses violence and threats of violence primarily against civilians for political gain, and that's exactly what the police departments do, is because it's all just for the political gain. Yeah, man. You know, I'm an advocate that we take our plates off. Not that's just the day one, and we do it indefinitely. I don't have any intentions of putting them back on. If I think it works better if we all just keep them off indefinitely. But of course, if people don't join, and then we all just gotta play the game the way we gotta play it. But you know, there is actually something I wanted to look into as far as the communication aspect goes. You know, within our own communities, and it's hard to find, it's hard to network. You know, I mean, the beautiful thing about the internet, about the Zoom call, is that we're all able to communicate because we're like-minded, you know. But unfortunately, we're not in the same geographic area, so it's kind of difficult. But if you do have like-minded, freedom, liberty-minded friends, like I don't know about the Android phones, but on the iPhone, you can set up commands for Siri, right? So you could tell her, hey, I'm getting pulled over, and then she will automatically execute a series of commands for you. And that could be as simple as texting your location with the message, hey, I'm getting pulled over, to everybody in your immediate network and your community. Because the one thing that the cops really don't like is when a bunch of people show up and start recording. They really don't like that, because criminals don't like it when other people are watching them commit crimes, right? And it's going to put a lot of pressure on them, and it's going to be a lot of peaceful pressure. And
Yep.
you know, with a decentralized protest like this is one thing that I like about the license plate removal thing too, is it's a decentralized protest. When you could have you know, 1,500 or 2,000 people all up on the county square, right, the courthouse steps, and all it takes is maybe 150 cops in riot gear, and they'll overpower the 2,000 people because they're trained in force and violence. But when we're decentralized like that, they don't know what to do. I don't think they have much of a contingency plan for that, and they certainly don't have any sort of contingency plan for peace. The government doesn't understand peace. It is pure force. I mean, the government's not even real. I mean, let's not forget that too. It's just an idea. It's just a belief system. It's just a religion, right? It's you know, I was telling these cops last night. It's you know, you have this belief in this immaterial higher power. That you believe when you wear that special costume, it absolves you of the sin of trespass against your brother. And you're trespassing against me right now by way of attempted extortion and theft of my property. Right? I mean, that's the core. That's at the very, very core. And the only reason you're doing it is because you believe that you're absolved by your higher power of that sin. And you're not. You're not. This is why so many cops, after joining the force, become you know, domestic violence abusers or alcoholics, or because deep down inside, they know, their spirit knows that you know, they haven't done the hard work at honestly measuring their behaviors against their belief system, because they know if they did that, they would come up short. If you're honest about it, you because most of them did join the force. Most of them did sign up to go. I want to be the good guy. I want to bring remedy to victims, and I want to protect my community, and I want to catch criminals. I think it's funny. I think about these cops in the police academy, right? These guys like training to be cops, and they're going through this whole training and all this physicality and this weapons training, and the whole time they're thinking, man, you know how many murderers I'm going to catch. You know how many, and then day one on the force, their boss goes, "Hey man, go hide behind that tree and extort a guy if he rolls through that stop sign." That's not what he wanted to do when he signed up. You know what I mean? But through the brainwashing of the academy, he's been told that that's his job, and he's got to do his job. He's got to do his job because the government's real, and it's not. It's just it's a figment of imagination. It's an idea. You can't meet the government. You can't go to the government. All you can meet is somebody pretending to be the government. It's like Santa Claus. All you can meet is somebody pretending to be Santa Claus. People go, well, how would society function without government? I go, I don't know, man. How does Christmas function without Santa? And I got that from Larkin Rose's book, The Most Dangerous Superstition. And that one really stuck with me real well.
That's great, man. How would we have Christmas without Santa?
Yeah, just people engaging with the belief system. I have this joke I'm trying to work out where it's like trying to explain to adults that the government isn't real is akin to when you're a child and you're trying to explain to your friends that Santa Claus isn't real. And it's like adults go, well, what about the roads? The kids go, well, what about the presents? And and then adults will tell you what they saw on Fox and CNN, and then when you tell your friends as a kid like Santa Claus isn't real, they'll be like, no, man, I was watching Fox last night and they were tracking Santa Claus's location. Yeah, the news is full of shit, you guys.
Wow. Well, thank you for throwing down and getting this conversation rolling in a big way. But I'd love to hear from other folks too about what they, you must be stimulating people's imaginations about what's possible for them. Maybe they're looking at their risk reward profile maybe a little differently now. And maybe they're going to want to take their plates off for just one day, if not more. I want to hear, what you think about anarchy. What do you think about what happens when you get pulled over? Do you try to avoid that at all costs, or do you drive in full peace and of mind that if it happens, you'll just stand your ground? Or honestly, what's like for you when you drive? Are you like me, a little bit intimidated when I see a cop, for example? And where will you take a stand if you're going to take a stand? And are you going to take your plates off on November 5th? Looks like Ken B's with us. Hello.
Hey, that's me. Thank you, Clint. You guys always bring up just outstanding topics, and I love your speakers and all this kind of stuff. And, one of the things that I notice, and I've kind of been in this, like many of you have kind of been in this freedom and patriot field for a long time, is there's a spectrum, right? And so on one hand, you've got, total self-determination, total self-independence. I'm not going to necessarily call it, I mean, you can call it anarchy, but I'll just call it total individualism. And then on the other hand, you've got total collectivism. And, everybody has a different tolerance or different place on the spectrum that they want to be. But the one equalizing force that I see that I think is really imperative to bring up, and Stephen, I apologize, I didn't come in to see your entire talk, but it's transparency, it's the willingness, it's critical thinking, it's your ability to how much do you truly believe in yourself. And the one kind of mediating influence that I personally feel in my life is that sense of higher power. And Stephen, I think you mentioned that very beautifully. Is that higher power an authority, or is it higher power kind of a benevolent partner? And so I look at it and I say everybody's going to have a different place on that spectrum where they feel comfortable. And so our job as maybe people that are a little bit more active is to help other people really understand what that spectrum is and what their choices are. And with that, obviously, if anybody's been in this field for, over a couple of years, you realize that there's more remedies that you can be able to count, they're everywhere. And in some sense, they're all good, but they're, it's like, how many tools do you need in your toolbox, right? Well, you need the right tool for the right situation. You don't need every tool ever made. So I just think that's something to keep in mind. It's not like I have a particular answer, but it's just a benevolent mindset that this universe is very intelligent. This universe wants us all to succeed and to find our own place. And that within that, we put out our intention and we say, hey, how can we create this place of peace where we all feel kind of comfortable for it? So it's kind of a large topic, but I figured I just kind of wanted to bring it up, mainly the idea of the spectrum, and that there's certain key things that we can do within that spectrum that truly can be the tide to raise all ships.
Yeah, Ken, I completely agree. I think everybody feels comfortable on different places in the spectrum, but I don't think anybody wants contracts forced on them. And
No.
how willing people are to resist forced contracts, there is a big spectrum as to what people are willing to risk. I recognize that I came to a point in life to where I kind of at a moment felt like I really didn't have much to lose. And so I took advantage of that to try and blaze a trail for everybody else. Because if I can go out there and say, hey, I don't have a whole lot to lose right now, so I'm going to take my plates off and just go, hey, I'm going to be this freedom guy. I'm going to try to raise the awareness and be that tide that raises all ships. If collectively we can push back a little bit on some of the restrictions and the authority of the state, then that helps everybody take a step closer toward what I do believe we all want, because it's ingrained within us as humans, is to live a life where there aren't contracts that are forced upon us.
Trespass is not correct no matter what way you look at it. Absolutely.
The other spectrum that I keep in mind is the spectrum between safety and freedom, different appetites for freedom and or safety. I've been asking people in America, what's the primary role of government? And too many people answer by saying to keep us safe, public safety. And they're not wrong, to be honest. The government does take the authority to regulate the public sphere to keep us safe. We would like to think that that's things, like safety from criminality, from violent crime, or even, white collar crime, or any kind of actual crime where there's people being harmed. But at the other end of the spectrum, the freedom folks are very much aware that the government obviously uses safety as a pretext to regulate all manner of behavior and put a fee on it and a tax on it. So, we need to be willing to be free and to teach our fellow Americans what safety really means. For example, a driver's license doesn't make you a safer driver.
No.
There's that little piece of plastic, and all I have to do is tell people, look, every single accident that happened on the road today was surely by somebody who had a driver's license.
And the ones that didn't have a driver's license, it would have happened anyway.
If you have a driver's license, indicator that you're a bad driver, because every accident that happened today was by somebody who held a driver's license. You can make that kind of logic. But yeah, we do have to recognize that the government fully owns the authority to keep us safe in the public sphere. That means on the roadways, in the public square, sometimes now online in the cyberspace. But we Americans, unfortunately, have tended to be soft and want safety over freedom. A number of times I've heard lately the expression freedom is not safe. Freedom is messy. Freedom is not safe. By definition, it's not. It literally is on two ends of the spectrum. You have safety on one end and freedom on the other.
Well, and I think somewhere in the middle is where we want to fit, which takes on the area of duties and responsibility. And so if we truly want to comprehend what real responsibility is, we do that in a very safe and a very well measured and a very focused manner. And, but the problem is that can be kind of intimidating. It can be scary. And so I look at it and I say, ideally, for those people who really do understand responsibility and they do understand freedom and they do understand all the things that come with that, that's great. If you know those remedies, you can kind of find your way out of the system. But for those folks that don't, the government kind of steps in and says, well, you're not doing this correctly, or you're maybe doing something to endanger. And, you know, ideally, we don't necessarily like our role of being the quote, the cop, but somebody has to do it because you're not. And so it's kind of like the default situation, you know, well, you know, you either do it or you don't, but I don't think that level, I think as you were alluding to, that the cops or all authority figures go in with the right intention, but then the system turns it around because it's a lot easier to take unilateral authority than to be able to give people free choice. But, you know, hey, if we got better transparency and true First Amendment, you know, where people could actually speak and not have that intimidation, you know, over a generation or so, you would start seeing people becoming very wise. Now, there'd be some that wouldn't, but I think that on a whole, you probably would.
Well,
So,
you know, I would think that history would argue with that because, you know, we had the Constitution, and the Constitution has led us to a place where we've got the largest war machine the world has ever seen that's ran by pedophiles. And you know, the Constitution didn't work. It either didn't work or it allows for what we have today. And you know, I just to reiterate, I want to remind people, like, when we talk about the government, the government's not real. There's people, there's people out there, and what we need to do is we need to talk about human nature. All right, so if, like, you're walking through a back alley and there's a human there, and they pull out a gun and they hold it to your head, and they're stealing your money, but they're telling you, hey man, you know, I got to take your money because I got to feed my kids, and they take your money and they get away. How concerned do you think that person is with holding themselves accountable to what they told you they were going to do with your money? They're not. It's not in the human nature for the one holding the gun to hold themselves accountable to the one that they're stealing from. And so any system that we have where the hierarchy is held together through violence and force, the ones at the top are never going to hold themselves accountable to the ones at the bottom. The only way that we can have a hierarchy where there's accountability is when the people at the bottom have the freedom to walk away, to seek out a different hierarchy that might better represent their values, or to even start their own hierarchy. And so it's like government's just a hierarchy made up of people. We gave it this fun little word. Well, we didn't give it the word; it was beaten to our heads as children, and it's not real. But we got to recognize human behavior. So pull all the words away from it and go, what's really going on here? Okay, well, there's all these people. You know, about 500 some odd over in Washington D.C., and somehow they're extorting 300 million people at gunpoint. And because they're extorting us at gunpoint, they're not concerned with holding themselves accountable to us. Why would they be? That's not human nature at all.
Yeah.
I agree, and I just maybe one more point is that the Constitution that was written over 200 years ago is not the Constitution we have today. It's not the government, or it's not the structural system that it was designed to be. And
Well, and
so,
it didn't prevent what it became.
well, and the way I would say it is the reason that it was kind of overturned is because people were not paying attention. And it started with the Civil War, and you start adding up all the different things that happened since the Civil War. You know, the abstraction of money, the abstraction of names, you know, the list goes on. So let's not, I don't want to put blame on the Constitution, but I would say that most people's interpretation, their understanding of it, and their ability to stand for it, to try to support what our responsibilities truly are, yes, that has totally fallen apart. So anyway, I
Can,
don't.
can you put the blame in the right place? You put it on the people not holding up to their values. I'm not trying to put the blame on the Constitution. I'm just highlighting the fact that it's worthless. It hasn't worked. I don't need a piece of paper to understand what morality is. And neither do you, and neither does anybody else. And it's this idea that we got caught up on thinking that, you know, the Constitution is just words on paper. It's no different than a restraining order. You know, I tell my daughters, restraining order is just a piece of paper. You're going to need a gun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Yeah, it's so funny. We're talking so academically sometimes, but we live in a time where the situation's pretty awful in terms of if we're talking about balancing anything. No, the train has left the station on that one. All right, Hank.
Yeah, well, my 2 cents worth on why one of the main reasons that we're in the situation we are is we've unwittingly made all these contracts with these corporations. Back in 1871, it was literally a inside job and a corporate takeover of America, and the old organic constitution's still sitting there, and it's available to what you would call a non-citizen national. You go to the State Department and get the non-citizen national passport, then presto changeo, voila, you're now an internationally protected person. And I'm not saying that going to any authority is right for any reason, but if we kill all the contracts that we've unwittingly got into, the birth certificate, the driver's license, the voluntary being a taxpayer, you get rid of all that stuff, and all of a sudden you realize a freedom that you never had before. Today I'm in the process of killing my contracts with the California DMV. I got my license plate, my driver's license, my pink slip, my registration. I'm going to package it all up and mail it to them for destruction. And I'm kind of hedging my bet. I made a private irrevocable trust, something I did myself. And you can write a trust on a piece of toilet paper. It's just an agreement between two people. And my agreement is between me and my all caps ens legis, which is a person in their eyes. But I went ahead and made a trust, and I put my right in the trust. So now if they take my right, they're stealing trust property. It literally doesn't, because see, the DMV holds the MCO, the manufacturer certificate of origin on vehicles, and then they give you a certificate of title, and all that pink slip is, it says that all it means is the title exists somewhere else. It's you don't own the car. The state owns the car because they have the MCOs, but you can get duplicate MCOs made up and have that. But kind of using it as an interface with all these agents that we come across until they get more used to the idea that not everybody's going to have a California plate, and because see their bosses don't tell them any of this stuff. They just, like you say, they just think they get in their funny little costume and strap on a firearm, and state national doesn't have to have a concealed carry permit. No licenses, no codes, no statutes apply to a state national. And that's just easy as filling out an application for a passport, and you get 3 or 4 or 5 stars, and you're all of a sudden, they can't touch you. I mean, if they can touch you, but 18 USC 241, 242, 1585 starts with prison sentences at 3 years, and goes up to, if it's conspiracy, 2 or more, it goes up to life imprisonment. And if they hurt you or kill you, it's a death penalty for them. That's the kind of power you have. And I would strongly suggest literally killing every contract that you have with the government, the corporations. It's all corporation. I mean, when you sign up for the California driver's license, you say you're a resident of the state of California. Well, the state of California is in a file cabinet in Washington, D.C., so how can you be a resident of a corporation? And nobody knows where that corporation is in Washington, D.C. There's no meets or bounds. It's a total hoax, the whole thing is a psyop. So I understand, but if you're driving around without your plates, I understand appealing to the man and all that, but they still have jurisdiction over you because you still got a driver's license and you still got the registration. The registration is the vehicle anti-theft prevention program that they don't tell you about, so they can stop you for any reason just to make sure that the right person is driving their car because it's their car, not yours. Even if you paid cash for it, you gave up that MCO and took the inferior title in the way of a pink slip. So I'll just say one more thing. If you want, you can go to the Department of Transportation, the Federal Department of Transportation. They're the big brother to the California DMV, and you can get what is known as a private carrier DOT number, and that DOT number is free. It's free for life. You can put it on any automobile you want, and it doesn't cost you a dime, and they're superior to California Department of Motor Vehicles, but you need to kill them contracts with the state of California because you're still under their jurisdiction. I mean, it's more of a way to peacefully interface, but still kind of be of the system. But you know, and I like you outlaws to just take off the plates and, you know, roll the dice. And I mean, I really admire that, but I'm pushing 70, you know, so I'm going to interface with them for a while until they figure out that, you know, something else is going on. So I'm taking the easy way out, but not really having to appeal to any authority. I only have one authority, and that's my creator. But I'm using these other tools to interface with these corporations till we and two, you know, if you want to do litigation and they mess up, you know, you can hurt them pretty bad and use their own laws against them. So anyway, in the name of justice, not in the name of revenge, but, you know, because there's no better revenge than knowing how they are. They got to live with themselves. So, I mean, you really couldn't hurt them any worse than they must probably be hurting inside, but you can spank them with the legal system. And I might even go do that just to try it and see if it's fun or not. But anyway, okay, I'll shut up. I'm done.
So,
Thanks,
oh, go ahead, Clint.
I just want to thank Frank for his contribution to this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, Hank, you know, you made a lot of really good points. I have killed all my contracts with the state of California. I did return my driver's license. I'm not registered to vote. I don't file any taxes. And even with the license plate that I had on my car when the registration was expired, because it was expired, it's no longer valid, right? And so even that one was killed. And back in 2019, when I was starting to learn about all this stuff, you know, I was getting really frustrated with the paperwork, and I started to think like, you know, most people don't have the capacity or the time. You know, people right now are working 2 or 3 jobs, and it's right. So, and now you got to study too. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to read and learn all this stuff that I don't really want to learn. And I'm sacrificing time with my kids, and it was getting frustrating. And so I thought, you know, what if we just broke the system completely, and we could do it through mass noncompliance, then nobody's got to do paperwork. That being said, I encourage everybody to continue down the path of doing the paperwork. Okay, it sucks, right? Because we're playing this stupid game of Monopoly. And if I want to quit Monopoly, I shouldn't have to scour the rule book and write a letter to the holder of Boardwalk to do it. But, you know, that's just kind of the position that we're in. As much as it just like burns me deep down inside to go, I got to go apply for this passport and ask permission for freedom and, you know, and just do this stuff that I shouldn't have to do. I'm never going to give up on this search to keep the government out of my life. And so if we can't get enough people to stand up together and just quit playing the game all at the same time, then yeah, we're going to need these bits of paperwork. But one little critique, the cops on the side of the road never assume that they can't touch you. Because, you know, a lot of these guys are knuckleheads who don't know their job. They don't know the law. You know, even the cops last night, I told them, I go, look, man, you know, I recognize that you did not go to law school to learn the law. And he goes, yeah, that's right. I go, yeah, you went to boot camp to learn how to treat the general public like enemy combatants. And so when you do interact with the cops, you know, there's be a de-escalator. Be a de-escalator, right? Because you can't win on the side of the road with cops. You know, I had 5 of them there last night. Even if I had 1 and somehow I got lucky and I was just able to best a cop on the side of the road, the fight's never over for me. Never, ever, ever over for me. But you know what I can do? I can be cool. I can be calm. I can be non-combative, non-belligerent, and I'm smarter than they are. And I can, what you said, I can go spank them in court, and or at least try. At least try.
Okay.
But yeah, Hank, not only do I like your beard, but I'm right on board with what you were saying.
Yeah, I feel you, brother. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one that is on that path, and it's all about being cordial and trying to talk to him man to man, and all that. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna shut up. Thanks for the camaraderie.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for being here, Hank.
Oh, yes, Hank. Thank you. Wonderful, Hank. David.
Great. Thanks for committing, Clint, and David for your commentary, and SteVAN for the education and learning you're bringing. I'm intrigued by the freedom versus safety, public and otherwise, piece of the conversation. And I very much come down on the side of freedom and liberty in all regards. The one way in which I am, I kind of see another side of it, and that's with living in Oakland. I'm reflecting back on the I believe it's wasn't Sam Adams. It was don't recall who it was, but it's the line about the Constitution is meant for a holy. I think he uses the term religious people, and by that I would think moral. But the people I'm around, even though I generally want to believe that people are good and decent, I see so much immorality and so much liberty taken with property that without some way of constraining people, there's no compunction to do the right thing. So you get hit in a car, and if a person's not compelled to stop by the system, why would that person stop and make me whole? So that's another type of theft of property and of freedom and autonomy. How do we, short of having a gun and compelling that person to do the right thing, how do we in a civil system being civil with each other without having I don't want to give that over to the government to provide that service, but I do want people to be strongly encouraged to do the right thing. How do we incentivize that?
Well, my big belief is my big belief is it's the free market that does it. The police departments are obviously failing, especially out there for you in Oakland. Obviously you're complaining about a system that exists currently with the government in place. And it's largely in part because we don't have the freedom to withdraw our funding from the police department and stick it with another justice centric business that maybe better reflects our values. But to really get to the heart, of what's going on with the rising crime rates and everything else, I like to use this example. When if you've got a lion in the zoo and then you have a lion on the African safari, they're the exact same animal, but they exhibit very different personality characteristics. And humans in our current system were raised in captivity. Slaves have always been really shitty people. Slaves are shitty people, and so when we look around and we point, we look and we go, hey, all this crime's going on, so now we need more authority to fix it. The problem isn't the crime's a symptom of living as slaves. Free people don't behave that way, right? And so the main answer to your problem is creating a society of free people where we're incentivized to do the right thing. We all want to do the right thing. We're born that way. We're born with the natural laws of human interaction ingrained within us. Dogs know how to be dogs, birds know how to be birds, and people know how to be people. And it, like with everything, like the whole abortion thing, people want to fix abortion by making more laws about it. But no, we fix abortion by, abortion's a symptom of a sick society. It's not healthy for life to kill itself. That's not the way nature's set up. That's a symptom of a sick society, just like the crime is. You go through a lot of like ancient hunter-gatherers, and they had a system that was set up that there wasn't, there was like a chief and there were elders and people listened, but they were a lot more egalitarian in their lifestyle. Everybody had respected ownership, and everybody was raised with this idea that we're part of a community here. And what we need to do is as I contribute to the community, that means I've got a safety belt for when something, or a safety net for when something happens. You know, the homeless issue is another issue, right? There's increasing homelessness, and it's like it's not because people are lazy, and it's not because people just give up in mass. It's because these people, I think, on some level, even if they don't know how to articulate it, they see the bullshit of the system, and they just go, "This is a dumb game. I don't even want to play," and so they just kind of give up. But you know, if we created a healthy society built on consent and freedom, then we could have a generate or a world of free people, and a lot of these problems would go by the wayside. They'd be few and far between. And even when something did happen where maybe you did get hit by a car and you got injured, and now it's hard for you to make a living and everything else. In a society full of free people, there's going to be a community of support for you. You're not going to have to worry about losing your house or not being able to eat or anything along those lines. We just need to, we need to change the way that we interact with each other. And we got to hold consent at the core of all interactions.
That's good. Thanks, SteVAN.
Thanks, David.
Great to see you again, David. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Clint, thank you very much from my heart for providing this venue where we can express ourselves we do as free men and free women. SteVAN, one of the things that twigged with me and what you were saying was that we're talking about division than what we have now, just with us being here. We have a union. Okay. And so in that union, where does that union come from? It comes from where? Our bloodlines. It comes from our bloodlines. And what are those bloodlines? Brother, I am full-blooded Italian. That goes back to the old country, right? There are others, within us now on a call, whose bloodlines go back to where? Goes back to Europe. And what happened there? Our forefathers, from supposed government or oligarchs, would have called them back in that time. And where did we immigrate to? We went to America. Okay? And this is what I want to say to you guys. We are part of that prophecy. We are the ones we have been waiting for. So all I'm saying is one mantra that I use to keep my focus, to keep myself, as they say in Malay language, just jalan, on that straight line, is that without love, where would I be right now? That's what I wanted to leave you guys with. Thank you.
That's a beautiful line. Without love, where would I be right now? Thank you.
Comes from a Doobie Brothers song, which is
that's right. You're right. I knew it sounded familiar.
right. And
now you're gonna make me start singing.
Well, they were a California band. What were they really onto? Jesus is all right with me. I love that. Hey, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Christy, how are you tonight?
Hi, thank you, everyone. Clint, I'm sorry, the guest, I just blanked out on your name. Oh, SteVAN, that's right. You've been on before. You're quite amazing to be so calm after what happened to you. I have a few comments. There's a few people on here, and I'm Brian, dearest Brian, and Ken and I were with the American State Assembly. I don't know if anyone on here still is, and we've left there now. I think all of us have. Did some paperwork to get out of the system, and my understanding is some of the paperwork maybe wasn't the best paperwork, or it could have been, or whatever, to pull out of the system, claim your name, and get back your straw man and all of that. I'm doing some other things too that are helping. Ken said there's millions of remedies that we can all do to get out of the system. Too bad there's not just one formal way. I can't be as calm as SteVAN. My car was kidnapped by the de facto for the same reason his was. And I have DOT plates. And what I found out my error was even though I pulled my regular plates out, sent them back to the DMV, they denied that they were going to be part of that, even though they're a private organization. And I should have sent another notice to them. I didn't know I needed to send. There was a lot of other things I could have done. Now, what I'm trying to do that should supposedly work is get a foreign EIN, foreign trust EIN number, and get new DOT plates with, so it's in a foreign, they're under a foreign trust and as a grantor's trust, and that's supposed to keep you out of the de facto and, you know, one step in that direction. Unfortunately, I still do. I eventually have to get the passport and turn in and there's plenty of places to do that, which I haven't done yet. I have not turned in my driver's license yet because I finally now have a car. It's an older car, and I have had to rent cars without having a car. And you cannot rent a car in the state of California without a driver's license. So I've unfortunately had to hold on to that. And that's just going to have to be for now. I'm doing the whole, you know, looking into other ways to do the straw man thing, because I started with the assembly and I don't know that that was all the right paperwork. Some people think it is, some people think it isn't. So I was harassed in the same way that SteVAN was, and I did not stay as calm because it was just ridiculous. You know, they called 3 cops, and this was back about 6-7 months ago, and you know, they tried to get me to sit in the back of their car, and I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not contracting with you. I gave them my California state ID. They would not recognize that. They wouldn't recognize my plates. They harassed me, and I had a lot of, you know, I never swore or anything, but I did get upset, and I just educated them that the DMV is a for-profit organization, and they don't know, you know, what they're talking about. They don't know the codes. They don't know the law. It didn't matter. They all have egos. They tried to call me a sovereign citizen. I told them that's an oxymoron.
I hate it when I get called that.
Yeah, I said, and the one kind of shut up. The other one, you know, they were all really just horrible, and of course towed my car, and I had to let it go. However, one thing I'm doing that you may look into, which I haven't done yet, I just have not had the wherewithal. I know who I am, but I do get scared because it was intimidating. They were really trying to provoke me into trying to arrest me. And I actually have a slight disability. So I walk with 2 canes because I have arthritis. And they literally, at one point, I had, you know, when the cop first started his BS, because I didn't pay my registration because they tacked on a $900 ticket that I had refused and revoked and blah, 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 for parking in a park that, you know, made my own handicap thing to go deliver something and get some help. And then, you know, this guy in the middle of COVID, some parking idiot, you know, gave me this ticket, which I revoked. But anyway, long story short, at that time, I may have paid my registration. But when they tacked on that ticket, I said, no way. And then I found out I could have just sent in the registration and, you know, still revoked the ticket, but I didn't know that. So moving forward, I'm doing my best to pull out a system. I think there's many ways. It's too bad there isn't one cookie cutter way for us all to follow. One thing I do know that I have not done yet is, and it gets costly because you have to send each officer I had to go after, I had to write up these documents, and then I had to send registered mail to all of them, and then the tow company, and none of that came through. You know, they just, I guess, laughed at it. Who knows? Checking to see if any sheriffs would go out and help me get my car out, because that's what sheriffs are supposed to do. There aren't any continental sheriffs in our area that would back me up. They all, if you look on their websites, they brag about how many cars they impound. And some of these people live in their cars, which wasn't my situation, thank God. But, you know, I just feel like it's horrible that they do this to people. Thank God that you did stand up for them. I stood up as much as I could, and then I had to back down. It was a very painful experience for me because they were trying to provoke me. And back to the, you know, I had put my canes in my car. I was going to leave. And the one cop, you know, said, oh, I'm going to arrest you if you get in your car. And then he called up for backup, and there were 2 more cops. You know, we have nothing better to do in Lafayette, California. But I did get a witness who was there, and he, you know, did a statement. So according to Pat, and what was interesting was I went back into my car to get something. I forget what it was. And they were telling me I couldn't even go back into my own car to get my own canes that I walk with, because after standing for an hour, it was a little hard for me to stand. And they were just such idiots. I held my own. I did hold my own. I really did my best to kind of, I feel like I could have had a better talk down, because they did intimidate me and I was a little scared. But I said, I'm not going to contract. Oh, we're not trying to. Oh, yes, you are. I am not walking over. I'm not getting in your car. I've broken no law. I've done that because I didn't break any law. I had no laws were broken. There was no injured party. I kept repeating myself. So they got a little bit of an education. But the point being, I don't ever want to go through that again. I just can't allow myself to. God bless you, SteVAN, for doing that. And I know that that David Rodriguez has done it too and stood up to them, and he knows who he is. And I do, but I am afraid of the authorities a little bit because I guess I just am.
I'm
It would be
afraid of
nice
them
to
too.
have some, yeah, it would be nice to have some more, like, some thoughts. I am going another route here with, I just started this other thing with the DOT. I'm trying a second time. Most people would think you're crazy, you shouldn't do that, but it's supposed to work, that you do it with a foreign EIN and it's out of their jurisdiction. Part of my problem was I'm still in their jurisdiction because of the whole DMV debacle, and I still have the license I have to turn in, which I can do when I get the passport, when I feel like I have a car that I don't have to rent a car for, number one. But number two, what I want to share with you, SteVAN, that, you know, they stole my property and they stole your property, and that is unlawful. And there are some things we can do. We have to file them in court and then take them to court. And then, you know, it's kind of a, you know what, shoot, if
Yeah.
de facto is going to recognize it. Now, if we do it properly, cross our T's and dot our I's and do the correct paperwork, and with the backup stuff, that we should be able to do this. I have not walked down that road yet. And, you know, I mean, it's, I guess, worth a try because, you know, just going into the courts, you're stepping into their jurisdiction, and it's not something we all want to do. But it's clear to me that you know who you are, and I know somewhat of who I am. You know, thank you, SteVAN and David Rodriguez. You've taken the fall and you still stand up, you come back fighting. And I just am kind of on that, like, I'm a little nervous. I'm driving with my old DOT plates that I put on instead of the plates that the people whose car that I got it from them. And I haven't turned it back over to the DMV and done all the stuff I'm supposed to do to put it out of their name, because I want to do it in a proper way where I'm not in their system anymore. So I'm working on that. Yes, I went through some horror. They laughed at my state ID, and the one cop made fun and said, where'd you get these plates, from eBay? And I showed him the DOT plates. I showed him all kinds of stuff. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Christy. I want to address something you said and then hand it to SteVAN. What you think about fear, SteVAN? Because I heard you kind of mention, like, yeah, we're afraid too. We know they got guns, right? And the state is an expert at violence. So I don't want to be a martyr. And no, so it's, as SteVAN said, and all the visionaries of all time, peace is the answer, and also standing up for ourselves. So how to do it strategically.
Yes.
For me, when it was the pandemic, I was doing Right to Travel because I felt the new world order coming into action right now. So my fear was to stay silent. My fear was to keep giving the government my money, keep giving the government my loyalty. So this is the consciousness that is rising, which is, today we live, we don't know about tomorrow. We want to live a long, healthy life, but a short, free life is better than a long, enslaved life. And we're talking about intergenerational freedom, which is the 7th generation the Native Americans talk about. All responsible adults think about the next generation. Don't we want to have a better world for our children? Well, if we don't fight, we're going to put the fight on them, and it's going to be worse for them. So my fear was to stay silent. My fear was to keep complying. And now we get to think, we get to use our mind. And still, the NWO, they're committed to what their plans are. And just think how crazy it is. These guys are now openly talking about 15-minute cities, central banking digital currencies that they can turn off if you're going to buy ammunition or whatever they don't want you to buy, money that expires if you don't spend it. So these plans are not conspiracies any longer. They are on the record, and they have to come out because they have to say how good it is. And the gentleman before said it's collectivist versus individualist. Yeah, that's right. And even more accurately, I call it consensualists versus coerciveness. Now, those words are weird, but through language is how we are manipulated. And by creating new language with new meanings, we now are creating new visions, new images, and new possibilities. Because again, this frequency of the other man said, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And how long have we been saying this, Clint, right? Like we know we're the ones. So how do we do it strategically, wisely, courageously, and not leave the battle to our children or grandchildren? And so I feel the fear as well. It's a different type of fear. But SteVAN, how do you deal with the fear?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. We can look throughout history, and every generation we go back, it would have been easier for that generation to stand against tyrants than it is for us. And so if we don't do anything now, then I'm just leaving a bigger fight for my children. And that's not what we're supposed to do as people. And yeah, they're highly skilled at manipulation and at fear tactics. Everything from their gang colors to the gun on their hip to the flamboyant lights on their car, the way it's designed, everything about it is designed to scare and intimidate. If it wasn't, if they weren't scary, if we weren't intimidated, then none of us would comply. And Christy, you kind of also hit the nail on the head with some of my frustrations about the paperwork. It's like, you wrote your name in blue ink instead of red ink, and now you're still a slave. And it's just like, it's so frustrating because it's so convoluted and complex. And you said you wish there was an easy cookie cutter way for us to exit the system, and there is for us to all stop paying. For us to all stop paying. You're worried about saying, "No, I gotta make sure that the DMV destroys my files." What if we just destroyed the DMV? If we stop paying them, all their funds dry up. They don't have any more workers at the branch. They don't have any more computer records. They don't have any more ability to pay the cops to make sure that we're forced in contract with them. The easy cookie cutter way to exit en masse in unison is simple non-compliance through non-payment. Starve the beast.
I agree. And I just want to quickly interject here, David. For a couple of years now, I've seen the signs of the 15-minute cities all over the Bay Area. It's very clear in Berkeley. It's very clear in Oakland, San Francisco. Even in Castro Valley, where I live, you can see where they paved the street that I live on. And instead of just making it a normal crosswalk, and it's not a heavy duty, it's just a rural area. They put the big white lines. The only reason why they would do that is for an aerial view. They've shut down a back way. I used to go to Moraga because supposedly the rain that connects Redwood Road over to Moraga. And they've said, oh, they just don't have the money to fix it. That's BS. They don't want us taking the back roads. They want us, where they can control us. They've done it also on Lake Chabot Road. That's been shut down for 2 years, and they say it's a money thing. It is not. And then there's these big pylons coming down Lake Chabot Road off of 150th because that's the only way you can go now. Those were not there a year ago. They've been sneaking it in, and it's everywhere if you start looking. And although there's supposedly some good things happening, and that the WHO and all those people are losing power and the deep state's going down, and it's a matter of time. So I kind of try to hold that vision.
Wonderful conversation again this first Tuesday of the month, everyone. It's so wonderful to be together. It's really one of my favorite times of the month to be together. It's just pretty informal, as you can tell. It's not like our courses at the Commoner Law Group, where you can check them all out at commonerlaw.com, where we have structured courses with, objectives and deliverables and modules where everything's nicely organized to deliver on the promises of each of the courses. The Great American Law Series is our fundamental course that every American needs to take to be reminded of these core principles, many of which we've been talking about tonight, in terms of what is freedom, what is the role of government, who are we, the people, who are the people that we are the people, what does it mean to be the people, what responsibilities and rights come with being a people, a moral, upright people, and where the American law itself came from, how we got the situation we're in, and some remedies for how you establish your freedom when those government agents come knocking at your door. And I am just loving this conversation. So who else wants to share what's going on with you, where your head's at with regards to free travel on the highways and the byways, and the underpinnings of how government has tricked us into treating it like it's this very real thing through intimidation, through our own ignorance. We allow it to creep into our lives in so many ways. But I do personally believe that we're going to make it. We are going to make it, and it's going to be a close call. I've been getting images of Well, if you've ever seen almost every action flick that ever produced, there's always a scene where the gate is closing or the door is dropping, and whether it's the spaceship or the hero has to run really fast, the gate's closing, closing, closing. Is he gonna make it? Is he gonna make it? Is he gonna make it through the narrow passage just before it closes and the whole thing blows up? I'm telling you, we're gonna make it. But we have to focus on making it. That closing door, the tyrants are very busy. They know that people are waking up. The internet has done quite a lot to empower people all over the world, and I think it's gotten a little more out of control than they expected it to. In any case, they have their plans for many, 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 many years, and they're hastening them. They're pushing them, they're putting them as fast as they can. And that gate is closing. They will, the people who just, when I say they, the people who just love to control everything and everyone, if they have their way, they're going to have us in a neo-feudal digital hellhole and a dystopic future. And we have to focus on that gap between this closing down, this narrowing, tightening. We've got to focus on making it through and just ignore all of the dystopic imagery that is projected in front of you. Yes, if you want to talk about digital ID, talk about it, but don't let it distract you. Don't be afraid. The number one intention of the powers that be is to get we the people to believe that what they have in store for us is inevitable. If they can convince us that it's inevitable, we're done, because we will all believe that it's inevitable. And if we believe it's inevitable, then it is inevitable. So instead of listening to all of this dystopic fear porn and concentrating on all the horrors that might be coming in the future and actually contributing your psychic, beautiful energy to feeding this ugly future that they'd love to have us believe is inevitable, and instead look straight through to the future beyond this closing gate and just tell yourself, we're going to make it. And it might just be that, like in the action film, it might just be a little hair's breadth that we make it through, but we will make it through. And we've got to focus on going just straight through, just the pure future that we know is ahead of us, where there is a better way for us. There is a future. God does win, and we will make it.
Yes, yes, I am in agreement. And when two or more agree on something, so it is. And we are creating, and I'm sure Stephen agrees on something, a part of that as well. We will make it. Solutions exist. We are going to get through it, get past it. And I agree. We will get there, but we need to build. We get to build. We are being invited to build. And that is to take a look in the mirror, as we all know. Start with that guy, that woman in the mirror. He's the main challenge in my life, is that guy in the mirror. And have compassion on that man or woman, and love yourself, love each other. And I'd like to hear Stephen's thoughts in the future. Stephen, are we going to get through this, man? Are they going to enslave us all forever in eternity?
Well, I don't know, man. It depends on how we vote, really, and the vote that we have that matters. It's not about being at the ballot box. If you go to the ballot box, it doesn't matter if you're voting for Team Red or Team Blue. You're voting for government and tyranny, right? And you're doing that with your behaviors. And so, the world I vote for is, I live my life in the way that I want to see the world be, right? And I really hope we get through it. I really hope that things get better. I hope we come together and create this world of peace and accelerated freedom. And instead of trying to go back to where we were, that led us to where we're at, we got to take that next step. It's not about revolution. It's about evolution of the way we interact. And Clint, I love what you were saying about the movie and giving the examples. And it's so funny because it's like you go through all these movies and they give us the answers as to what we're supposed to do. And when you go and you watch Star Wars, you're rooting for the rebels against the Empire. But then as soon as you leave the theater, you go and you support the Empire. You go and you give the Empire your money and hope Darth Vader does his job right. You know what I mean? It yeah, they give us all the answers in the movies. It's part of me thinks it's like this weird ritualistic mocking of their victims because you know, they got this weird spiritual thing that they do. And but yeah, I'm optimistic, man. I'm optimistic about humanity. I'm optimistic about who people are deep down inside. I'm optimistic that if we could raise one generation of free people, that it would extend well into the future, well into the future. You know, there's the biblical story of the Jews leaving, exiting Egypt and wandering around the desert for 40 years in search of the promised land. And you know, the reason why they had to wander around for 40 years, you know, a lot of the Jews, a lot of the ones that left Egypt, they wanted to go back. They were out in the desert and they go, oh, freedom means responsibility. That sucks. And then they wanted to go back. And, you know, but the children that were born out in the desert during those 40 years, they were born free. They were born free. And eventually they were able to inherit the promised land because the promised land is for the free person. It's not for the slave. And so one generation is all it's going to take to really set the world on a trajectory to where we're going to make it through. And you know, is it going to happen in our lifetime? Is it going to happen in the next 100 years or 500 years or 1,000 years? I don't know. I don't know what the timeline is going to look like, but it is going to happen. It is definitely 100% going to happen at some point.
All right, amen. Are you ready to jump in here, Fiddle Witch?
Yes, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if any of the fine people here would have an overview or an insight on my query. Alternative groceries and energy and all this other good stuff. And there's also a lot of alternative government. There's a bunch of Restore the Republic efforts. And since looking into it, it's quite a zoo. And there's like a lot of them. There's the Anavan Rights, there's the American State Nationals, there's a Re-Inhabit the Republic, NCGJA, there's all these different groups. I mean, I could think about 6 or 7 of them right here. They usually seem to be in disagreement with each other, although they're all striving to do the same thing, so it would seem. So I'm just wondering if any of you all have any insight or overview or information, then I would love to hear it if you do. Thank you very much.
What I look for when new groups and new ideas start popping up, I look for the where's the coercive nature in it, right? Because once you have coercion in it, what happens with coercion, like take government building codes, for example. People think, oh, government building codes keep us safe. But what government building codes actually do is they slow innovation. They don't allow good ideas to rise to the top. When somebody's allowed to use force, they don't let good ideas rise. They only let their ideas rise, and they use that force to suppress other ideas. So what I love about voluntary living is it's about your individual contract. It's about your individual consent. It's about saying humans aren't stupid. We're not dumb. We are not dumb creatures. And the people that walk around going, "Oh, everybody's an idiot," it's like you're not seeing things quite right yet, right? We're not dumb. And when force is removed from the equation, the good ideas have the ability to rise to the top. And we will naturally gravitate toward the best ideas. And the best ideas are always the ones that are win-win, that are mutually beneficial. The government pushes scarcity. They push this idea, you know, our current system pushes this idea of scarcity. There's only so much food, there's only so much land, there's only so many homes, there's only so much water, there's only so much whatever. And when you play a game that's surrounded by scarcity, it becomes a zero-sum game where one person's going to win and everybody else has got to lose. But we actually live in a world of abundance. There is more than enough for everybody to go around, and we could probably quadruple, if not more, the population. And so when we're playing and living in a world of abundance, then it's a win-win situation. And the best ideas are the ones that make sure that everybody wins. We have the ability to create that. And so, you know, I don't know all the groups that you had mentioned, but, you know, when a new group pops up, a new name pops up, a new person saying that they got all the answers, I start looking for, okay, where's the coercion at? And as soon as you get a whiff of coercion, no matter how innocent or how justified or how much they paint it as like this is the best way to go forward, no matter how small the coercion is, that's a cancer that's going to grow. That's a cancer that's going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and eventually it gets you right back to where we're at today.
Beautiful, beautiful thoughts. Beautiful. My message to people is that we have to learn the law. We have to learn, which comes down to morality, but every single person has to have literacy about governance and law, and trust that our morality, our true nature, will discern the right way to move forward, and to make sure that the fail safes built in to the system to make sure that no individual or no group of people can get together and take God-given rights from any other. SteVAN, you just created yourself, just as your name is, as a role model, and that's what we need. We need role models. And I'm so appreciative of your time. David, you guys are, to me, you're a duo now. I mean, you're my comedy, freedom-loving duo. Like, you've created a whole category.
Yeah, David's going to be on my show on Thursday.
Woo!
That's right. Come on through, no cover, and you're going to have 2 freedom comedians. We're trying to raise some more freedom comedians up, man, because comedy's good, and some of my friends are just doing comedy for comedy, but I'm doing comedy to get the word out, and a little bit of therapy for myself, because once you go deep down the rabbit holes, you're like, are you freaking kidding me, dude? What is going on? So that's why I stopped paying taxes and stopped participating as much as I can with government, because like you said, we got to take a look in the mirror, and when we point a finger at somebody, we have 3 fingers pointing back at us. So, that's the reality. It's an inner awakening. The world is the way it is because of everybody's inner life. And as we develop our spiritual self, I believe, or our inner man or higher man, whatever some might call it, I believe we're here on a spiritual mission. And I think this is why many of us came to this planet, is to be part of this meeting right now, to agree on the future, to agree on some solutions, to figure out freedom of choice, and to build something tonight and tomorrow. And hopefully we get to do it again the next day. Life is a gift. It's a beautiful thing. It's the most precious thing we have, is your life, my heartbeat. Life is such a beautiful thing. You're a special man or woman on the earth, as we all are. And it's so beautiful to be with you, Clint and SteVAN, and the people that are here, because it is us. And I no longer try to blame anybody. I just try to look at myself, blame myself, to be honest with myself, be kind to myself, because we are the ones, and I'm responsible for my life. And as SteVAN said, yes, the promised land is not for the slave-minded people who want to go back to Pharaoh. Humanity is coming out of the slumber, and we just happen to be the ones here on this call together, and we're just going to keep pounding the drum. SteVAN's going to keep promoting, as I'm going to help too a little bit with the November 5th International Remove Your License Plate Day, or however you want to participate. This is a choose your own adventure, and you get to choose how risky you want to be. No disrespect to anybody who doesn't take your plates off. I understand how terrifying it is, but as SteVAN said, it is thrilling, it is exhilarating, and it is so fulfilling to know you are being righteous and you are following your heart and you're doing what's right. At the end of the day, like MLK said, it's always the right time to do the right thing. And when we have a criminal terrorist government, you got to be strategic about it. But, this is, I think, the beginning of a great movement. I appreciate, SteVAN, your passion and your commitment. And also you, Clint, for your commitment. The Great American Law series is very helpful. Fritz and Sue Ann, bless her soul, created a great course. And I learned a lot through that course. So learn, study, you can do it. You're brilliant, you're smart, you're talented. And it's just a joy to be with you guys. So thank you so much.
All right, everyone, your microphones are open. If you want to shout out blessings or thanks as we head out, I will be closing the Zoom. I don't want to say goodbye, but I'm going to close the room real soon. So just shout out anything you want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clint. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so
Lovely.
much for everything. Yep, looking forward to partnering up November 5th. Do what you want, take it down. Mass force, always wins. Mass force. That's what the bikers do. That's what we do. We do it well in Jersey.
Thank you, brothers and sisters.
Thanks, brothers and sisters. Good night. Take care. See you next time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Peace and love.
bless.
Yep. Thank you, SteVAN. Thank you, Clint. Peace and love, everybody.
See you guys.